Local 5 CyHawk Game Day is sponsored by Nissan.
And welcome into CyHawk Game Day. I'm Jon Schaeffer, joined by Jeff Woody, former Iowa State Cyclone running back. Jeff, beautiful day for football.
Wonderful day for football, and you got two really fun matchups outside of the state of Iowa, both in places where weather is not going to be super warm.
You're not wrong there. Wisconsin, not a warm place this time of year. Neither is Iowa, so it's a good day to kick back, stay inside, watch some football. Both teams coming off or have their bye weeks in the past now. A big one kicking off in Madison, as Jeff mentioned. Iowa at Wisconsin. Hawkeyes a 3-point dog there. The Cyclones on the road in Morgantown. They have to keep their winning streak going if they want to be in Dallas come December 4th. And let's start right there, all right? So Iowa State has been nothing short of sharp the past 4 weeks. Yes, including their bye. But a long road trip to West Virginia can take time and, feel a bit daunting. Not to mention, when you get into the stadium itself, tough place to play. Just ask Matt Campbell.
I probably can relate enough to it growing up in that area that I think just the fan base there, I think the passion that the people and the fans of West Virginia have for their Mountaineers, being the only show in the state, the only show in town, it's a hard place to play.
It's a great place. It's a great atmosphere. The fans are wild. We love coming into Morgantown. It gives us a different scenery, especially being in West Virginia. It's nice. I like it.
They told me it's a madhouse. Coach Campbell jokes around and said that's where real football's at because you can see the steel and everything like that. So I'm just super excited. I never thought as a kid I'd be able to see different environments from football, but I'm just happy that I am.
Iowa State, West Virginia, kickoff at 1 p.m. Jeff says he's only been there once.
It's a fun place to play. There is enough beer and moonshine in that state that makes its way into the stadium to make that a fun environment.
And it feels like Jack Trice Stadium, same architect. Alrighty, WVU owns the overall record 5-4 in this series, but Iowa State has won the last handful. So we'll see how things shake out. We'll get you a full recap tonight on Local 5 News Late Edition. As for the Hawkeyes, a bye week might be just what the doctor ordered. These guys were able to get the R&R ahead of what will be one of the most physical battles of the season for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Mix in going to Madison for this one, and I would not expect the blowout we saw a year ago at Kinnick Stadium.
I don't want to speak for them, but I can't imagine that wasn't their best game this past Saturday. They looked really impressive in all three phases. And again, I'm not saying I know what they want to do, but I think they're probably, I'd be happy to run the ball like they did. The both backs, just about 300 yards between the two of them.
They're a very fundamental defense. I mean, year in and year out, they have a great offense. They can run the ball very efficiently and great defense as well. I mean, they very low points scored on them, I believe.
The leaders on this team is trying to make sure that everybody knows that we can still accomplish what we want to accomplish, and that's to go out there and hopefully accomplish the Big Ten title and win out the West. And that's what we've been priding ourselves on. And so going into this week, we're going to prepare. We prepare for Wisconsin like we're going to prepare for every other team.
The Hawkeyes and Badgers square off at 11 a.m., so you can switch the channel right after this and see if Iowa can win their second consecutive game against the Wisconsin Badgers. Badgers have won 7 of the last 10 games between these two. Jeff was shocked to see the over-under number, and we're going to get into that picks later.
Big Ten football.
It's ugly. Let's just put it that way. Up next on CyHawk Game Day, we're going to hit the whiteboard for a big breakdown of the cat and mouse showdown of Iowa State and Oklahoma State last week. Back in a busy day of college football ahead and a big game for Iowa State on the road in Morgantown, as we just talked about. But this week, Jeff takes us to a breakdown of Okie State and the Cyclones from a week ago.
Welcome back to the whiteboard. As we've been talking about in the first few segments, this was just really good football. Iowa State playing awesome football, very smart football. Oklahoma State playing awesome football, very smart football. And for those of you that think football is just a bunch of dumb jocks playing against each other, you might want to change the channel, because this chess match was so much fun to break down and watch just how Oklahoma State was able to slow down Iowa State's running game, and then Iowa State making adjustments to that adjustment to get that offense moving again. So how we're going to start with this is understanding what a defensive strength means. So defensive strength, you've heard the positions strong safety and free safety, or Sam linebacker with an S and Will linebacker with a W. Well, a defensive strength is where everybody lines up. If they say strong right, there's a certain lineup that everybody's going to exist in. So Oklahoma State sets their strength off of number 9, Brock Martin. He is a terrific player. He's technically a defensive end, but plays a defensive end linebacker hybrid. So Chase Allen was on this side. Number 9 was on this side. They were setting their strength to the tight end. Well, number 9, Brock Martin, being such a dominant player, Oklahoma State knows that Iowa State likes to run at their tight ends. So with him over there, they said, you're not going to run at number 9. They moved him to the backside. Well, now what their mission is, with him on the backside of an inside zone play, is that these 4 guys, 1, 2, 3, 4, are going to be held up by 1, 2, 3. So if these 3 guys can keep these 4 guys at bay, this linebacker can run wherever he wants to run. So once this motion happens, this defensive end is going to scream up the field to try and clear this tackle out of the way. This linebacker is going to scream up the field to try and clear this guard out of the way. And if I'm a running back, I look at this and go, sweet, that's a huge hole for me to run through. Well, because these 4 were taken care of by these 3, this linebacker is going to fit right in the middle of the hole. And this is Rodriguez. He's a terrific tackler. Well, now I have to concern myself with the backside of the play, because Breece Hall likes to make one of his patented cutbacks across the field. So this free safety knows that he's got to get involved in the running game. So they've got a front side player who's open and going to make a tackle. There's a backside player who's open and going to make a tackle. This is impossible to run against if you're in this orientation and Oklahoma State runs it that way. Iowa State recognized that and said, we got to make some changes. So what they did is they came out in an unbalanced set. So there is no real strength that Iowa State is promoting, which means Oklahoma State has to choose what their strength is. Iowa State then gets to choose the other direction. So as soon as Oklahoma State sets their strength to this side, we're going to decide as an Iowa State offense to run away from that strength a long ways away. So that's an inside play. They ran an outside play away from number 9. The reason for this is because now, with this strength on this side, Iowa State can get an edge, can get an edge, can get an edge, man blocking. And then you got Breece Hall one-on-one with a free safety. If you can take that as an Iowa State offense, it's going to work. Well, let's say Oklahoma State wanted to move this guy over here. Jared Russ would have moved over there. And then you have an edge and an edge and an edge. So Iowa State came and said, wherever you set your strength, we're going to run outside away from that. So that's a little chess piece. Oklahoma State said, all right, you're going to run that outside zone stuff against us. We're going to make our safeties more aggressive on the front side of the play, because we know you're running away from number 9. Come to Xavier Hutchinson's touchdown. Iowa State said, for the whole half, we don't want to run at number 9. And to make sure of that, we're going to set a really strong formation to this side. We're going to set a tight end. We're going to set a fullback. We're going to set our biggest wide receiver to this side. You, as a defense, have no choice but to have your strength to that side. So they go, aha, we're going to have this occupy everything, and our free safety is going to be responsible for that backside cutback right. Okay, well, we're going to put him in a bind. If he plays up, there's a run fake to this side. If he plays up, there's a slant that runs right behind it. If he plays back and tries to play in front of that slant, Breece Hall has an edge and an edge and an edge. And we saw how that happened already. This guy cannot be right because of all of the things that happened earlier in the game, which leads to a 75-yard, I will still call it a touchdown.
I think Matt Campbell would too. And when we come back, we're going to go more in depth on the 22nd ranked Cyclones and a couple of impact players who have left their mark on opponents in recent weeks, and they're going to have to do it again against the Mountaineers. Alrighty, welcome back into CyHawk Game Day, a beautiful Saturday morning. And Jeff, we're going to talk about these Cyclones again. 3 straight wins. They've looked really, really good on offense. Brock Purdy's been really efficient. But we're going to start by talking about defense, and more specifically, what Will McDonald has done this year. What's really impressed you about the defensive end?
Will McDonald, he is just the most explosive player that you could actually ask to play defense for your defense. He's a guy that if there is a position that needs to be dominant in the Big 12, which is generally a passing league. It's shifted a little bit more to defense and running game, but it's still a passing league at its core. And when you have number 9 in the field, you can't. If there's an obvious passing down, you have to double or sometimes triple team him, which takes a tight end out of the route, which takes a running back out of the route, which gets a one-on-one for Eni Uwazurike. It gets a one-on-one for Zach Peterson. It gets a one-on-one for somebody else. So his dominance in the pass rush game changes how opponents can even think about calling an offense, because 3rd and 12, well, we can only run 4 guys out there because we have to put a running back in to help our tackle on number 9.
And keep in mind, he has 7.5 sacks on the year. He's only 1 away from breaking Jaquan Bailey's sack record of 25. So crazy stuff there. We'll see what he can do against the Mountaineers. Let's move on to the offense now. Xavier Hutchinson has been the go-to guy for Brock Purdy. Mr. Reliable, as I like to call him, and really been that person that Brock Purdy can lean on.
Yeah, he's been Mr. Reliable. In years past, we've seen Xavier Hutchinson be explosive. Everyone knows that he's a great athlete, but what's changed this year about Xavier Hutchinson is his understanding of how to play wide receiver. Brock Purdy knows how to play quarterback, Breece Hall knows how to play running back, and then you had a great athlete last year. Well, now you have a really smart great athlete because he's had a little bit more snaps under the belt. And so he understands how to use leverage, understands how to play around zones, understands how to work a corner to get the corner to give him what he wants. And it's just a really exciting thing to see another dominant wide receiver, because there was a little bit of a spell between Lazard, and then you get Hakeem Butler, and then Deshaunte Jones plays a little bit different of a style, and then you finally get to see Xavier Hutchinson again, which is how this offense clicks at its best when you have a dominant running game with Breece Hall, and then you have a really explosive wide receiver that can keep everything stretched apart. That's the way that Iowa State wants to run.
And really quick, let's talk about the Big 12 as a whole. Today, huge game to watch. Baylor, Texas. This is a big game if you're an Iowa State fan. You're probably rooting for Texas here because you need another Baylor loss.
Yeah, anytime. Right now, Oklahoma is in the lead of the conference, which we can talk about them and say they might be on shaky ground.
Yeah.
But they are undefeated right now, and then there's a 3-way tie with Oklahoma State, Iowa State, and Baylor. Well, Baylor has the one-up because they beat Iowa State head-to-head, so you want Baylor to lose a game to break that 3-way tie because the head-to-head doesn't matter at that point. So as much as it is just painful as any team, not Texas, to root for Texas, you kind of want Texas to win today to break that 3-way tie, but yeah, it's still just to your soul. Rooting for Texas.
So maybe no horns down today if you're an Iowa State fan. Let's just avoid that.
No horns up, no horns down.
Just no hand signals
no horns
whatsoever.
today.
All righty. Still to come, we're going to look at number 9 Iowa as they hit the road for Madison, and actually an underdog in this one. We're going to talk a little bit more about the showdown with Wisconsin.
one guy that's dominant. It's not where you have one linebacker that's going to be in the NFL and that's what you build the defense around. It's that 11 guys play together. And the front four is the key. They start that. They are the ones that provide the pressure. We talked about it in the Purdue whiteboard that if you are able to withstand the pressure that the Iowa defense is going to put on you, it's okay. You can get away and you can find holes in the defense, but if that defense is dominant enough, as they have been and as they can be, to put the decision-making 2 seconds faster than you want it to be there, the rest of the defense just thrives on that. That's how you get those 6 or 7 or 5 turnover games. That's how you force Penn State into uncomfortable positions. But without that pressure, the defense, it's missing 4 of their best.
Yeah.
You have to have 11 playing great, and that defensive line to force Wisconsin into turnovers is going to have to be good.
And you look across that board, it's a strong rotation. No one stands out as the guy that's going to go get you that sack, but that's kind of the identity of Iowa's defense, and so we'll see what shakes out there. Offensively, though, you have to get Tyler Goodson more carries. That was the big problem against Purdue, just not enough touches.
Yeah, and Tyler Goodson is the offense. He is it starts and ends with Tyler Goodson. He's the best player on the field for either side when he's on. And if you don't get him involved, we know, again, we're not talking trash about Spencer Petras, but his game is not to throw the ball 35 times.
Right.
If you're in that situation where you're throwing the ball 35 times, you are in a bad spot if you're Iowa. If Tyler Goodson, if I were to say, hey, against Wisconsin, Tyler Goodson's going to have 27 carries, you're saying, all right, that's probably going to be a pretty good game for Iowa. If I say Spencer Petras threw the ball 35 times, you're going to go, ugh, that's not what you want. It's just the way this offense is built and taking advantage of your best players in the best situations, especially in a hostile environment.
And Spencer Petras is at his best when he's throwing off of run fakes.
Yes,
I mean, the play-action game is where Iowa thrives offensively.
Yes, they have to establish the run. It's a Kirk Ferentz staple, is saying we are more physical than you, we are tougher than you, and we can move you out of the way to get our best back the ball.
Not to mention, I just want to see him be more creative offensively.
He might be waiting.
Is that asking too much? All right, well, let's talk about the Big Ten West. Thankfully, for Iowa's sake, it's not super loaded. Minnesota is the only other team tied with them with one conference loss, and really Minnesota hasn't played anybody outstanding yet, but they've won the games they're supposed to.
Yeah, they've won the games they're supposed to. They still have to play Iowa, so that's a chance for Iowa to take advantage of that. But it only matters if they can get through Wisconsin. If Iowa can get through Wisconsin, then the rest of the season becomes, okay, you've got chances to clinch that Big Ten West playoff berth. The Big Ten East is terrific. You have 3 of the best teams in the country in the East. 4, Ohio State, Michigan State, Penn State, all those are on the other half. Iowa just has to get through this, and yeah, it's kind of the down half of the conference. So big game today to get them the chance to kind of lock that West up.
And it almost feels like this could be setting up as a Wisconsin backdoor opportunity into that Big Ten West title once again. We'll see how everything plays out. Again, 11 a.m. kickoff up there at Camp Randall. That one airing on ESPN. All right, don't go anywhere. 3 keys plus the pick 5 to wrap up CyHawk Game Day. That's next in Week 9. Show right now. We've got our 3 keys for the Iowa State Cyclones to get the dub today. Jeff, hit it.
Yeah, you have to possess the ball. Iowa State has done a really good job in these last 4 weeks of winning the turnover margin, not letting their opportunities slip through their fingers. In the first half of the season, they did. They gave up the ball way too many times. So possess the ball, and you can beat an inferior opponent, which you are more talented than. Second is bottle up Letty Brown. He is their offense. Running the ball to him, throwing the ball to him. It's a lot like Deuce Vaughn with Kansas State. It's a lot like Tyler Goodson with Iowa. If you can control him, the player, that entire offense falls apart. Then secondarily, run aggressive. You know that West Virginia is going to load the box. They're going to say anybody but 28 can beat us. Well, do it anyway. If you can run aggressive, establish the ground game against a heavy box, it demoralizes the team, it eats time off the clock, and it allows you to be the better team when you are the better team.
All righty, as for the Iowa Hawkeyes, we're going to start with bottling up the run. The Wisconsin Badgers average more than 200 yards rushing a game. They don't have much of a passing game.
Yeah, and they don't want to throw it because they turn it over. Mertz is often rife for an interception.
And then you've got number 2, get back your creativity. I hit on this just a second ago. You want to see a 4-quarter coached game or called game. And what I say by that is Penn State, they set up that touchdown pass to Nico Reganey with a similar looking play back in the first quarter where it was just a dump out to the flat. I want to see more of that play calling.
Yeah, and Iowa is not known for creative offense, but you can work within the status of how you do it to be a little bit more open, a little more innovative, a little less predictable, and that'll help against a tough Wisconsin defense.
Definitely lack creativity against Purdue. All right, number 3, silence the crowd. Silence the crowd. This is Iowa's first real road test since Iowa State back in week 2. Camp Randall's no joke.
What's funny is Iowa has the weirdest splits with home and away. They are plus 12 in turnover margin on the season. They are plus 11 on the road, only plus 1 at home. So they're really good on the road. If they can carry that into Camp Randall, again, Wisconsin this year has been able to give the ball up. So if they can be plus 11 and build on that, they're going to come away with a win.
No Riley Moss today for that secondary. We'll see who steps up in his role. All right, time now for the pick 5. Jeff, we're going to roll through some of these. I went 2 and 3 again last week.
Again, don't take John's pick.
I'm just under 500. You know, if we had 6 games, I'd be just fine. All right, let's get up these pick 5s here. Iowa versus Wisconsin. This line dropped to 36 for the over-under just before I put this segment together. So I'm taking the over, all right? Look, 2 teams that actually know how to score a little bit. A loose term, but this has been in the 40s and 50s 3 of the last 4 seasons. I also sprinkle Iowa on the money.
It's just got to at some point. Yes. At some point, these 2 teams have to score.
It might be Wisconsin blowing Iowa out. Who knows? All right, Texas on the money line. I do think this game is a shootout against Baylor. And I think Texas is built to win a shootout more than the Bears are.
Well, and Texas is way more desperate right now. Baylor wants this game to stay in Big 12 title contention. Texas wants to have this game just so they can stay in the conversation of the Big 12. So Texas needs this one. I agree with you there.
Michigan -4 at Michigan State. Look, Michigan State's been really good this year. They blew up my over-under on their win total for the season, but they haven't played anybody great this year. I think Michigan comes in, drubs them by a touchdown.
And Michigan has one of the best defensive lines in the country, especially led by Aiden Hutchinson. That is not a line where Michigan State, a run-dominant team, can actively go out and be able to push Michigan around.
Really quick, Georgia, -14 over Florida, best defense in the country, only allowing a touchdown a game. And then Iowa State, give me -7.5 on the road. I think their offense is just clicking too much.
It feels a lot like the Kansas State game. I think that is probably a fair assessment.
All righty, great show here. Looking forward to recapping a great week of college football next week in Week 10 here on CyHawk Game Day. Enjoy your Saturday.